Let's go ahead. Good. Good. Did a good job. Full participant again, so in good shape. It's going to be the same answer. Yeah, I mean, and I mean that too. He's doing great. He's a 100% participant. He's doing a heck of a job, taking care of himself with a lot of different things. As soon as we get off the grass, he and Reggie have a great plan. But, I can't see into the future, but I certainly, if you look at what the last week has entailed, feel really good. And there's nothing that would lead me to believe, unless we have an unforeseen setback, that he's not going to be ready to roll against the Texans. I think it's been great. He's so smart. He's such a conscientious player. I think, even each of the last couple of years, he's a veteran presence. He's played a lot of football, but he's got this young energy. You can see he's a really competitive player, but he's a great communicator. I just think having him around, where he's got some wisdom, he's got a bunch of different experiences he's accumulated, but, really has an understanding and an ownership of the intent of what we're trying to really get done. And so he's played at a really high level. I really think our corner group as a whole is really deep. We've got what we look at as 4 starting corners, and that's a positive thing for us with the Kello, with the Kobe, with Darius, and with Emmanuel Forbes, and so that's a real positive thing for us.
With the final spots on the roster, the deadline approaching.
Yep.
Do you know exactly where you're at, who you're going to keep, or what's like the next? Oh, you do. Yep. So there's no at this point.
Today's practice, it kind of confirmed, but this was the last physical evaluation that we had until we have to make cuts until tomorrow. But yes, I do know what our 53 is going to be. No, he's good. He's going to partake in next Monday's practice, Wednesday and Thursday, and then he'll just do the jog through stuff on Friday. So it's really cool. I think we've got a good plan in place. Again, that is something, whether you talk about Matthew's back or the thing with Alaric, that I certainly have never dealt with before. So I think that demands, flexibility, but we feel really good. He has put so much work in. I think he's handled it like a total stud. And I'm really happy for him that all things are pointing to him being ready to go and being able to manage this. And I think there's been a lot of work behind the scenes of being educated on how many people have really been able to deal with this, what's the best way to be able to have the meds, and then you get off of them so you don't leave yourself susceptible to some of the things that the medication can prevent you from being able to play football. And so he's done a lot of work. I think we've got a really good gauge on when those get out of his system, and feel really fortunate that that's the direction that we're trending in.
Sean, just to clarify, with Alaric, you're saying the rest of the team goes next week?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you've got your initial 53. Well, what's the problem? How involved are you now with other teams, waiving players becoming available? Are you involved at all in procuring?
I think you look at it, Gary. I have such trust in Les and John McVay and Matt Waugh and Ray Farmer. They do such a great job, and so fortunately, you're pretty deep in the claim order just based on where we finished, and so. That's something that you always are mindful of and you monitor, but I feel really good about what our 53 is going to look at. And, it changes. I think this narrative of the 53 and then it's always set. You guys know as well as I do, there's so much flexibility that's needed. You might practice squad, flex guys up. Who gets a jersey 48 out of the 53, maybe end up putting somebody down front, flex somebody up. And so there's a lot of different things, but I do feel really good about the way that our roster is shaped up. Hopefully we came out of this practice clean, and then everything will be able to kind of stay according to plan with what our 53 is going into tomorrow. Sure. Yeah.
Talk about the work you let him do overall.
During an off season.
I know this was not the plan for him to not practice during training camp until then, but how is, I guess, the lack of physical work for you helping as he goes through the season along the same lines of thinking about?
I think he'd be best equipped to answer that. I think the most important thing is how do you find a way to be able to understand how important the work is, but allow yourself to stay emotionally, mentally, and physically as fresh and engaged throughout the season. There is some monotonous parts of training camp. There are some monotonous parts of the off-season program that are very necessary for a lot of guys, but I don't think you pigeonhole yourself into a one-size-fits-all approach. There are certain things that we have consistent standards that everybody abides by, but there is an awareness and an understanding of, some of our veteran players, how do we keep them mentally, physically, and emotionally sharp? And that goes for all of our players, but I think with the veteran players, you can take a little bit different strategic approach. And so with Matthew, I think that's served him well. You get some time with, your family and, the beautiful little girls, more than you would otherwise, but I think just to keep him feeling like, hey man, it's fun, it's engaging, he loves being out here practicing and competing. And then, does he need to hear, some of our standard 2x2 formations at the beginning? No, he doesn't need to know that. He doesn't need to be there for those kind of things. And so picking and choosing our spots, that was part of the plan. Obviously, it kind of organically unfolded, maybe a little later than we anticipated, but I think he is having a lot of fun. I think he's enjoying it, and sometimes that absence, you can really have an appropriate perspective of how much you love doing this stuff, and that's what I felt from him, the last week and a half.
At this point, Tom, I know you had said that you had planned to give him 1 day off every block. Is that kind of the conversation you guys approached to get right through this year?
Yeah, we adjusted that plan a little bit just based on him getting out there last week, and so we naturally kind of have a 4-week or a 4-day block anyways, where you're kind of deloaded on that 3rd day. So he's been a full participant really in everything. He's been able to feel good each of the next mornings, and so we'll continue on with that, and then we'll see what the in-season approach entails.
Coach, do you have an update on Josiah Stewart?
He's in the concussion protocol. So he ended up having a little incident last week, and so hopefully we'll get him out of that. And he's doing good, making good progress.
Coach, how was it to see Terrence get a little bit of game action finally? And what was your take on that?
It was good. I thought he did a really nice job. I think he did a good job in the run game. I think he can finish a little bit better on some of those things, and he knows that. We talked about it because I got a lot of confidence in him not to just be a receiving tight end, but a complete tight end. And then in the receiving stuff, I thought it was cool. He ended up winning on the slot fade where we just missed him, then came back to it, ended up hitting him on that, and then a little bootleg where gets a good run after the catch. He's just kind of got a good feel, good tempo to his game. I thought he did well.
As your offenses have evolved through your 9 seasons, how is this one going to be different? Without being too specific.
I don't know the answer to that yet.
I mean, going in though, do you schematically, will it be a new look? Will it be?
Well, here's what I would say. Going into 9 seasons, what answer do you think I'm really going to give you? We've known each other for 9 seasons now. There's no chance I'm giving you anything that would give us any relevant information. But here's what I will tell you, Gary. I think you have to have fluidity and flexibility. We have an idea, all right, how do you want to implement Devontae? How does that affect Puka, Tutu, Jordan Whittington? How about the tight ends where we've got some good depth there? What does it look like for our offensive line with the different run schemes that we think they can bring to life? What fits Kyron and Blake? And so what's best for Matthew? So all of those things we have in mind. And we have foundational parts of our offense that are always going to be just part of our natural installation progression. But as the season goes and then as the opponent changes, we have to have necessary things that are priority calls versus these types of defenses, or these are all-purpose types of things. And so I think that is to be determined. I look at it, you always have an idea, you always have a plan in place, but based on personnel number one, and then the opponent, and then what do your guys do best, those are things that we're always evaluating. And what's unique about this time of year is we've got a great defensive front that we're positively pushing one another, really just defense as a whole, but they play a specific way. And there's certain things that we wouldn't do that maybe we would do against a Texans type of defense that we think tactically is more advantageous. So that's the unique thing that we've always got to be able to feel out as we go. And like anything else, those coaches and players do a great job of adjusting as seasons progress as well. So we'll see, but I will say I feel really excited about this group. I love how connected they are. I love the way that they positively push one another. I've really enjoyed every single day with them. And they, it's easy to feel motivated and excited to come to work when you're like, man, I don't want to let these guys down, whether it's your players or your coaches, because you just love being around the group of people that you're working with. And there's a whole hell of a lot to be said for that.
Coach, from a tactical standpoint, how do you go about designing these game plans and schemes and everything when you have a coordinator on the opposing team who was in the building last season?
Yeah, I think that's pretty consistent with every team now almost. We've got guys that are, a lot of different places every single year. Presents challenges, Brock. And so I think for us, we've got to do a good job of not overthinking some things. He might know it, but when are you going to do those types of things? And so I think those narratives are fun. There's certain just standard stuff that they might know that we have to be mindful of. Some of the just the verbiage at the line of scrimmage, maybe your cadence. But I think you can sometimes, get a little bit of a paralysis by analysis if you overthink those things, and still is going to be about executing and playing to the best of our ability, one snap at a time.
Okay. I know there's a lot of talk about the number, 53 number, but a lot of these young men who aren't going to make the roster, they're just trying to provide for their family.
Yeah.
What's your message to these guys who were close to making the roster, didn't quite make it this year, but know that to keep fighting and keep fighting for their spots?
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it. And I think the important thing is real clarity with the feedback. You know, if you care about these guys enough, you want to be honest with them. You want to have the appropriate empathy and tone. But the first thing we always try to do is make sure that there's an appreciation and gratitude for the work they put in. If this means this is the end of the journey for now with us. And then I think you want to be able to provide real feedback of, okay, here are some things that we think, and shit doesn't mean that I'm always right, but we try to do best for these guys of trying to provide tangible feedback of what allows them to be able to move forward in the best positive manner. And so I think that's really important. I think clarity is a gift for people, you know, and I think it can be a force multiplier. And I think leaning into some of those hard conversations with the right tone, the right appreciation is what we want to really be able to try to do. And I think it's so important for us to do that, and that's what we'll try to, you know, we'll try to be able to thread the needle appropriately. I thought it was really, you know, such a class act of the way that the 11 guys we sat down with yesterday handled themselves. It's a really cool reflection of the way that these players have poured into their teammates, the feedback I got from them yesterday. And then there's going to be some hard conversations tomorrow, but those are the difficult parts of this job. But I think you owe it to them to, you know, establish an appreciation, but also an honesty of, you know, why are we in this position and how can you move forward positively. Okay? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.